There are 4 things that I want you to concentrate on as a salesperson. And it's simple to remember. Just put the letter P down and you'll have it. The first is that you need to be able to prospect. Prospecting is key to our success. If we're not able to prospect, we're probably not able to get appointments and therefore not be able to make sales. The second is we need to be able to make a presentation. And when I talk about a presentation, I don't mean that you're the best presenter in the world. It just means that you can explain your product to the person that you're dealing with. Now, after that becomes product. You need to understand your product. But your product is what I call, or the way I define that, is product malleability. Not just product knowledge, but product malleability. That is understanding how your product applies to the way the customer or the prospect is going to use it. And finally, professional and personal development. Things that you do to improve yourself. Now, here, let's show you what this looks like. Prospecting accounts for 45% of your success. If you're not able to prospect, if you're not able to get in front of somebody, the odds are you can't make a sale. The presentation itself only accounts for 20% of your success. Only 20%. People think it's more. Oh, I make a great presentation, but if you don't get in front of enough people, it really doesn't matter. Your product knowledge, interesting enough, is 20% of your success. And professional and personal development is what's left, is only 15%. In other words, 65% of what you and I do as a salesperson is finding somebody and telling them what we do. 65%. If you are not able to find enough people to speak to, you do not have enough of a market to actually sell to. So you have to consider these and you have to factor that in. Now, it's not to say that your day is spent that way. I don't want you to confuse that and say, well, 45% of my day is prospecting. That doesn't necessarily apply. But what does apply in terms of weighting those activities and understanding the significance of it. So learn to prospect, learn to make a good presentation, learn your product, but know there's always somebody you can call on who's technically more proficient than you. And last but not least, improve yourself. Read books, take webinars, take seminars, do things to improve yourself. All of this combined makes for a well-rounded and a successful salesperson. Let's talk about what makes a sale happen. There are really 4 elements that need to be present. 4. And if you miss any one of those elements, you're not going to get the sale. The first is that you have to be talking to the right person. Now, when I talk about the right person, I don't mean the person who can make the decision per se. It is the person who can get the decision made and should be the person who can make the decision. But it doesn't have to be. It's got to be the person who gets the decision made. That's the right person. The second thing, we have to be talking to the person about the right product. How did you determine the product? You determine the product by involving the prospect. You have to have the right product, not just for you, but for them. It's got to work for them. And that leads us to product malleability, which we'll talk about later. We have to be talking to the right person about the right product and about the right timetable. Realistically, when will this happen? When are they going to buy? When are they going to run out of product that they need your products? And finally, we have to be talking about the right price. And if we're not talking about the right price, or we haven't brought up price, how can the person possibly make a decision? So those factors go into making the sale. And if you miss one of those elements, you're probably not going to make a sale. I want to take you back about a couple of years ago when I was dealing with a company. And the person went on a sales call, and he really believed that he was dealing with the right person. Truthfully, he believed this. And I kept asking him, I said, what makes you think that? Well, the person's told me that. And he has a big office, and he looks important. And he told me all these kind of things. Well, I asked a couple questions. First of all, how long had the person been there? Now, that sounds like an irrelevant question, but it's a crucial question. Because if the person has been there 2 weeks, it's a lot different than they've been there 30 years. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I said, well, what's his title? Well, he knew that, kind of. I said, and how does he report to the president of the company? Because there was a president of the company. He said, well, I think they're good friends. I said, well, that doesn't mean anything. Does he make the decision? Is he a rubber stamp kind of guy, or is it just going to make the decision? I said, well, I don't know that. Did you ask how they made the decision before? Because they're using a competitor. He said, no, I never really asked that question. And so what happened was, long story short, we didn't get the sale. It went to somebody else. In fact, it went to the incumbent. It went to the company that was there presently. Now, why did it go there? Because it's easier to do that than it is to change. It's easier not to have to change than it is to change. But more importantly, what I want to illustrate here is that by not finding out who the right person is, by not asking those questions, we missed it completely. We missed the sale completely. Now, what can you do when that happens? You can't. Everybody says to me, well, can't you go above that person to the president? Can't you go above that person to the C-level? You really can't, because that person, the C-level person, probably doesn't even know this is happening, which is your second question you ask on the second meeting. Have you told the other person about what we're talking about? Have you involved the other people in what we're talking about? And what has their reaction been? Those are important questions to ask yourself and understand when you're selling.